Hello, everybody. Welcome to WIF Academy. Here we have today the Morse panel with us. So our two panelists for the night are Manav Shah and Aryan Kasera. Manav is a year 3 Morse student with excellent performances in examinations over year 1 and 2. Apart from that, he spent last summer as an investment banking summer analyst at Moelis, an elite investment boutique investment bank. Additionally, Manav has also worked with Warwick Business School Society as a senior equity research analyst. Aryan is a year 2 Morse student. Apart from doing exceptionally well on his examinations, he has secured spring and summer internships at BNP Paribas, BlackRock, and Citadel. He has also worked in equity research roles at Black Elm Equity, a student-run investment fund. So the agenda for the night is to cover some module-specific and general questions with regards to Morse. We would like to begin with the module-specific questions first. So the first question addressed to the floor is, statistical modeling modules involve the extensive use of the programming language R. So what would you suggest as an apt preparation strategy for someone new to programming?
I'll start. So I think when you're starting with a programming language like R, which is obviously very statistical based and so used majorly for statistical works only, a key component of it is sort of to understand the major technicals behind the programming aspects. So for example, if you're making a vector, for example, in R, it is very important to understand how you can manipulate it and how you could actually do actually make functions off of it. And obviously now with ChatGPT, it becomes pretty easy to sort of do that and sort of get the initial skeleton code for anything. However, it is additionally very, very important, like I just mentioned, to see what is happening in the background and how things are being manipulated and how things are actually working.
Also, and like any other programming language, at the end of the day, R is about practice, right? The more you practice, the better you're going to get at it. So I guess just like spend more time with it, and you're eventually going to get get a hang of the syntax and stuff. So yeah.
Thank you, guys. So the next question again is to the floor. Did your experience of year 1 exams impact your future choice of modules?
I guess not really, because my in-person for me, my exams in year 1 were not in person because of the virus. But I mean, even if they were, I don't think I'd have changed my modules much. I'm a maths guy, I like proofs. I think the modules that I've taken in year 2 and year 3 sort of reflect that. I've taken norms, metric spaces, and in year 3, I've taken stuff like high dimensional probability. Both are heavily proof driven. And I think the one thing I liked about year 1 maths, and I mean undergrad maths in general, was that they look at maths with a whole new perspective and a whole new lens. It's not like high school where you're taught an integration formula, you're just supposed to apply it, find the error on the curve. Yeah, sure, that's helpful as well. But I think here it's more about how the integration formula is made, and like, can we even integrate something? Is it even measurable? And what exactly is distance? How do you find distance between two sets? And can distance even be found? So it's small things like that which I really enjoyed, and that's why I took it. I mean, it's not because of the exams or my experience with the exams.
So yeah, for me, I think yes, to a certain extent, because before going into year 1 exams, I was completely sure. I'm a stats guy, so before going into year 1 exams, I was more or less completely sure that I won't take any math modules in the future. However, math modules after my math exams, it actually did go really well. I actually did understand quite a bit about what was going on abstractly, and which made me actually take partial differential equations and multivariable calculus in my second year. Uh, that are also really helpful when you're sort of considering the overall impact of sort of generalizing functions to sort of the multivariable case. and sort of really finding it a lot of fun. And I think year one exams are really important for you to understand, and actually from a base of what you want to do in terms of where you want to specialize in and what sort of niche you want to go into. And yeah, I think that's why year one exams are so important.
Oh, thank you. Manav, I understand you took the mathematical economics module. So, what would you suggest to prepare for that module?
Yeah, so I did take Math Econ 1A and Math Econ 1B. Math Econ 1A was more mathy, if you may put it. It's things to do with game theory and things to do with, sort of Nash equilibrium, finding mixed equilibria, basically stuff like that. And I think something that the econ department does is really, I mean, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's not like you understand Math Econ 1A and then you'll be able to solve it. It's more like you have to understand it and then solve similar questions to understand what they expect out of you when you write the exam. I remember that, like, I mean, I had learned the entire thing. I learned Math Econ 1A and then I was solving past papers. And the first past paper that I solved, I actually marked myself and I got some ridiculously low mark. And I was like, why? Because, like, I've understood everything. And I mean, I should at least be able to, like, get like a mid decent mark. But I saw the mark scheme and I thought that, like, the econ department has a really specific way of marking things. I suggest y'all go back, look at the past papers, look at the mark schemes, and look at how they expect you to write the answer. I think that's something that can help you a lot in Math Econ 1A. Math Econ 1B, on the other hand, is ironically not very mathematical. They talk about the Walrasian equilibrium and stuff like that. And yeah, I guess like you're building a mathematical concept for aggregate demand, but in terms of the game theory aspect, there's absolutely none. In terms of applying what Mathicon 1B teaches you, there's not much you can examine in the exam. And yeah, so I guess that's how you prepare for it.
Thank you, Manav. So the next question is, what was your studying strategy for pure math courses that were highly proof-oriented, like sets and numbers and linear algebra? Aryan, if you would like to go ahead and answer this.
So, particularly for linear algebra, I'll start with that first. I actually found it really difficult initially because I could not really grasp what was happening around, because it's very abstract yet so sort of familiar because you're sort of using it every day. I actually went on this YouTube course, which was actually pretty good. This thing called Linear Algebra 1M, taught by a guy teaching in an Israel university, and it sort of cleared a lot of these concepts for me. You'd also realize when you actually solve linear algebra papers, they're more computation based than they are proof based. Uh, I'm talking about the papers. The structure of the module is more proof based, but papers are generally more computation based, especially with row reductions and stuff like that. So I definitely suggest that YouTube playlist because it's really good. With sets and numbers, I think really difficult module. I definitely give it that, but again, practice really helps. It's sort of like an ask me anything math paper at the end of the day, and I think a good knowledge of sort of understanding how to sketch complex functions, or sort of understanding how to solve modular arithmetic could be really helpful.
Oh, thank you, Aryan. Coming back to you, Manav, what would be your studying strategy for statistics modules, which are more application based as opposed to pure math modules, which are largely theoretical?
Yeah, so one thing you'll find in Morse, especially in year one, is that you have this two scales of maths and stats which completely oppose each other. One is like proof based, one is like application based, and you constantly have to go back and forth between the two. And I think for the application part of it, I think past papers and exercise sheets are the key to everything. Because if you notice in the mark schemes as well, there's three types of questions. One is bookwork, which in the application based modules you should really expect. The other is scene exercises, which are basically sums or questions which have been seen on exercise sheets or problem sheets or assignments that you've solved in the past. And the other type is seen similar, which is a question whose idea has been introduced and whose idea has been seen in exercise sheets, but not exactly the same way of how to solve it. So I guess like in order to ace these exams, which are completely application based, the best thing to do is look at your exercise sheets, solve them again, and sort of just understand the idea behind how to solve each type of question. I think that'll help you the most. For example, like in ST202, stochastic processes, it's a very application based module, and the exercise sheets really help a lot. You need to know different ways of calculating hitting times. You need to know what is a recurrent chain, what is not a recurrent chain, how to identify them quickly, basic things like that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Manav. Again, this question's for you. How should one approach sets and numbers given the module involves a multitude of proofs, theorems, and related axioms?
So one thing that I learned about dealing with proofs, and I actually learned this quite late. I learned this in year two. I wish I had this in year one, honestly, but I guess what it is when you're learning the proof for the first time, don't copy the proof. And at the same time, don't just ignore the proof altogether and say that, okay, I'll learn it later for the exam. Instead, what you should do is write down the steps of the proof. So, example, if you have to prove A implies B in something, okay, don't write down the entire proof of how they do it. Just write down the steps that first show A is C complement, then show that C complement is a subset of D, and then show that D is this or that. I think basically writing down those steps will give you an idea of what you're supposed to do. And then later on, when you're learning for the exam, try to remember those steps, not the entire proof. And that actually makes your life easier when you, like, in the actual exam, you'll find it easier to remember what you have to do. And also in these modules, there can be like 50 proofs, and it's impossible. Like, I mean, it's almost impossible to learn all of them. So I guess this method works where you remember the steps of the proof and then you basically replicate it in the exam.
Thank you, Manav. So the next question is, how do you divide your time between revising lecture notes and solving problems, especially in proof-based modules, and what resources do you use the most for the same? Aryan, if you would like to answer this.
Yeah, so I think in terms of revising lecture notes and sort of solving problems, I think more than sort of okay. The way I like to do it is have my lecture notes in front of me and continuously keeping on solving problems. So rather than sort of going through lectures and lecture notes, I'd rather solve the problems and sort of look at the proof, see if I don't understand something, then only go to the lecture and sort of understand what am I really not able to sort of get from the concept. I really think the idea of having the proof in front of you or having some formulas in front of you and with an understanding of how that proof is made and solving problems in stats related modules, solving application problems based on that proof, I think that's the best strategy to go about it.
Thank you, Aryan. Okay, the next question is again for you. So, what is your approach to writing answers for theoretical questions in economics modules, given that in year two, certain modules like EC 239 and 238 have great weightage in essay assignments?
So, in terms of essay assignments for the economics modules, I think they are heavily task ridden anyway. So the way it's structured is they give you a particular set of tasks that you have to complete. It's if you're doing ST221, it's sort of very similar to that, but with a very economics focused view. And the way to actually do it is sort of just like you write a debate, for example, have everything sort of backed up with an argument. And a lot of that is sort of credential to the commercial awareness that you gain from real life, and how you can apply that sort of a commercial awareness view to your answers. And that is, I think that is where you're strictly marked on in these theoretical essays. Whether it could go sideways as well, because a lot of theoretical economics is not really pertaining to real life economics, but a lot of times, and majorly so, there is some correlation. And it is very important that if you find that relation, and if you uh, outline them in your answers, that really gives you a lot of points.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is with regards to the WBS module mathematical programming. So this year it's going to be taught in term 3, and that's a concern to year 1 students. So what would you advise them to, stay up to speed with the teaching while also, preparing for the rest of the modules for the summer exams? Since this assessment is, 100% based on the summer exam itself.
Yeah. So it actually happened for us as well, that we were taught the module in term 3 itself. And with an online exam, though, I don't know if it's in person this time, but what I actually found very useful was sort of leaving aside half an hour every day to sort of just see what was being covered in that module. If, for example, I'm finding one week particularly sort of receptive to my understanding, I would not spend a lot of time on that module for that week, and I would carry that time to the next week where things may get more complicated, and I would not be able to understand them. I think that mathematical programming one is again a lot of optimization and a lot of practice is required for that module. So yes, watching lectures is really useful, but more useful is to actually solve the problems and understand the actual concepts of duality and stuff like that.
Thank you, Aryan. So the next question is, as we keep going through the proofs in the Math Stats B module, they get tougher and more confusing along the way. What's the best strategy to prepare for the exam? Manav, if you would like to answer this question.
I guess one of the good things to do before you take on any module is to sort of skim through the end and understand what the main goal of the module is. I think in the end of mathematical stats part B, you learn about hypothesis testing, whereas in the start you learn about like maximum likelihood estimators, and you can often find you can often ask yourself why that is. Like, there may seem to be no real link between the two topics, but I guess if you understand the whole objective behind the module, it's like it just builds stats concepts and then applies it to hypothesis testing. And I guess that's the intuition that you should have in your mind all throughout as well. You should obviously know how to find all these maximum likelihood estimators, for example, and moment generating estimators and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's to apply that in the hypothesis tests. So I guess if you don't understand the proofs that much, don't worry about it a lot in the start. Just go along with the flow, understand the entire thing, and then get back to those proofs and then learn it again. And hopefully you'll understand the whole rationale behind it. So yeah.
Thank you, Manav. So, we have, done a lot of module specific questions. Now we would move on to a couple general ones. So both of you have, had work experience in some of the top financial services companies in the world in the form of summer or spring internships. So how would you, describe your experience there?
So my first year experiences were majorly spring weeks, and I also did some other work with family offices and the private equity fund. So with major financial services, I've realized that a lot of what you're learning in university is just to understand how you can apply how you can apply how to learn in that sort of setting. At a major financial services, maybe a bank, maybe a consulting service, anything, not hedge funds in this particular instance, but in these industries, you are you are taught a lot on the job, wherein your academic credentials might not be the most useful, but the way you actually taught yourself to learn at university is the most useful thing, which is why Morse comes in very handy, because obviously, because you're sort of moving back and forth with so many different types of modules. You're doing WBS modules, you're doing econ modules, you're doing maths and stats modules, and you're jumping back and forth between proofs and applications and what all. So that inculcates a very sort of strong sense about how you want to go ahead with your work and how you prioritize your time and how you sort of look into things from a quantum mental view. So sort of have a quant view and apply fundamentals to it and have a view pertaining to that. And I think that has been really useful. And yeah.
Yeah. So as far as my experiences go, in year one, I actually came to uni, and I mean, my first week, it was like freshers week and stuff, meeting new people. It was all like extremely overwhelming, and I was like into all that stuff. I used to go out, like, I mean, almost every night. I didn't really know much about spring weeks, and so I sort of missed out on that opportunity. But if you have as well, don't worry too much, because there's only a fraction of students that get summer internships with the help of spring weeks. There is a whole new recruiting process out there for summer internships where people don't have spring weeks. And that said, also don't just do nothing in your first year. Because I didn't have a spring week, I made sure that I had other internships back in India. I actually taught math at a high school over here. So that sort of worked out for me. And then, yeah, my experience with equity research in the Warwick Business School Society sort of like built my CV up. And then I was fortunate enough to get a summer internship offer at an elite investment bank. Um, my internship at the investment bank was quite, I mean, it was interesting. It was fun. It was like, I mean, I learned a lot, but at the same time, like, I mean, it was really intense. The work you do can get quite a lot, and just keep going, I guess.
Thank you, guys. So the next question's again to the floor. Now that first year students would be applying for summer internships in a few months' time, according to you, how important are first year grades, for getting and securing good internships in the summer and springs as well?
Yeah, so first year grades, in all honesty, don't matter a lot. But just because I said that, don't not pay attention to your exams. It's obviously important. But at the same time, if you don't have amazing first year grades, don't get too disheartened. You are still equally likely to get internship opportunities as anyone else. Obviously, if you're a class topper and if you have the most amazing marks out there, that does increase your odds. But if you haven't done so well, don't get too disheartened. Like, the job market is completely different from the academic world. People understand that you're doing more. It's not easy. And yeah, just keep applying, I guess. Don't care too much about the fact that you didn't do so well. I guess just like focus on what's in front of you and not what happened behind.
Yeah, I think I have a similar view to that. I just think that I think there's a threshold, and I think that is a 2-1. So, and honestly, that is not the most difficult job in the world to get a low 2-1, for example. So I think even if you just aim for a low 2-1, that should be good enough to get a summer internship. But with that said, it is really important to do well academically for your second years, and also because it's being counted for your grade. It's being counted as 10% for your entire grade. So it's obviously important.
Thank you so much for your answers. I think with that, we'll come to the close of this panel event. Thank you very much, Manav, Aryan, both of you for joining, for giving us this time. And your inputs are very valuable, and I'm sure they'll be appreciated by our audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanmay and Pratyush for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah.